Welcome to Exhibitor Lounge, sponsored by ExhibitEdge.com. Now, I'm your host and your trade show mixologist, Michael Gray. Here each week you receive simple, practical, and proven tips to improve your trade show marketing strategy and get better results while maximizing your budget. Now, the term linear exhibits is derived from the fact that there is a straight line of exhibitors that are side by side. Now, last week we discussed the back wall height restrictions for these linear exhibits, which focus more on the exhibitor behind them. Today we're going to discuss the line of sight show rule for the same linear exhibits, but this rule focuses more on the exhibitors to each side of you rather than the ones behind you. Now, this rule is a little more complicated as it changes as the booth size increases. But let's start with the basic principle. Now, the rule simply states that your neighbor to the left and right has the same opportunity for an attendee to see their exhibit as they walk down or across an aisle, as they can see your exhibit. Now, bottom line, you are not allowed to obstruct your neighbor's exhibit by putting tall items in the front of your booth space. So let's take the basic 10 by 10 booth space and draw a line from left to right, dividing the booth in half. All right, you with me so far? You would have two 5-foot deep by 10-foot wide spaces that together would make the 10 by 10. The rule generally goes like this. You're allowed to go up to 8 foot tall in the 5 by 10 space nearest the back wall drape. In the space that's in the front half, you would need to drop down to a height that is usually no more than 4 feet tall. Now, I know that your first concern is that if you have a front counter that is standing or bar height, which is usually about 42 inches tall, that you would only be able to put a 6-inch item on top. Now, I can tell you that I've never seen the line of sight rule disallow a standard monitor to be placed on top of a counter. Now, by a standard monitor, I'm talking about a 42-inch slim monitor or smaller. Now, everyone does it, so it would be hard to enforce that rule on a show floor. Just don't go putting the latest gadget or gizmo that's the size of a mini refrigerator on the front counter, as it would be clearly a line of sight violation. Now, many exhibitors try to put 10-foot pop-ups on the back wall, and then they add a banner stand on either side or on the front edge of their exhibit. These banner stands are usually angled so attendees can see them as they walk down the aisle. If they're in the front half of the booth space, they would also be a violation of the line of sight rule, and your neighbor would have the right to ask the show organizer to have you remove or relocate it. Now, here's where the line of sight rule gets a little complicated. You are able to have thin poles, panels, and header signage that can go all the way to the front edge of your exhibit space, but only in larger booth spaces. Linear exhibits that are 10 by 30 and larger provide these allowances with the restriction that you only do this in the middle section of the space. The show rules get pretty specific about dimensions and visual lines of sight, so it is best for you to read the rules of each show for yourself. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is that if you are getting a larger space, you can modify your exhibit to take advantages of these exceptions. As always, please respond with your questions or comments and let others know about ExhibitorLounge.com. Hey, we'll see you next week. Until then, I'm your host, Michael Gray, telling you, relax in the Exhibitor Lounge.